All right, we're going to start the recording right now. Hello, everyone, wherever you are. We hope you're having a great day. I'm Rick Zanotti with Relay Corporation and RELATECASTS, and today this is a brand new show. We are really excited about this, and the show is with someone you're going to meet in a brief moment. Her name is Edel. She says it so much better than I do. I love the way she says it, but I say O'Mahony because it's just easier. It sounds better when I say it, but she says it really cool. You'll hear her. Edel is a very interesting person. She's been a financial person involved in finance for a long time. She has worked, she is considered one of the, I think she was voted top coach in the UK. She has done a lot of personal and business coaching for people. She has a great message about life and how you can have a really good life, and she does a lot of talk about that. And I'm going to let her tell you more about herself. And without further ado, here is Edel O'Mahony. Hey, Edel, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
The surname over, I don't know why over here. Actually, in Ireland, because that's where we're from, it would be O'Mahony. And in England, for some reason, it becomes O'Mahony. So it's like Armani, which is great to get into restaurants, you know. So there's all kinds of sort of versions of it, you know.
So that's great. And you have a very interesting past. You've done a lot of different things.
Yeah, well, I had a career in corporate finance, but, you know, I went into that after coming out of a 10-year marriage with 4 children, 4 very young children, and I had no qualifications, I had no money, I had no self-confidence or anything. And I had to do something, and conditioning was telling me that the only way I could be successful was to have a career. So I looked at maybe doing law or finance because, you know, figures was the one thing I was really good at. Not that I had been at school, but I found out that I was. That's another story. I sort of took that path of going in and starting to do some training. Ended up going to university, which was not even in my consideration, but it was my wonderful tutor that I had at the time, gave me just such a boost of confidence. And I went into doing a degree, but I had to pull out of that because my ex wouldn't pay his side of the mortgage, and they did a repossession on the house. So I had to go into work and actually study in the evenings and at the weekends, and then be working all through the day. And that was a huge journey. It was kind of like a twofold thing, because up till then I had lived this life of total conditioning, totally being controlled by everybody around me, to the point of being in this very controlling, abusive marriage. And I got to this point of being having absolutely nothing apart from my children. And I had to create something going forward, because my biggest concern was not having them going out on the streets and wandering around the streets and getting into trouble. So there was this enormous, how can I put it? It was like taking leaps off a cliff.
Yep.
For me, you know, because I knew I had to go out, and I knew like I'd have to go out to an interview for something that I didn't know how to do, because obviously I'd never done this before. So I would be absolutely terrified, but the will in me to do something and create something for my children and to be able to support them was so strong that it kind of overtook. And it was like running to the edge of a cliff, trying to get away from everything. And you get to the edge, and of course you can't. You've either got to jump or you've got to go back into what's already there. And that's when I kind of started my cliff jumps, you know, and I had to take that leap, and I had to take a deep breath, and I had to go for an interview, and I found that I actually did really well in them, and they took me on. I'd have another leap going into the job, and then I'd go into the role, and I wouldn't know what I'm doing, but I'd, you know, have absolute trust that you know, I would be able to do this, and I'd do it to the best of my ability, and I did, and I actually did it really well for the companies, and I made them a lot of money. And so gradually, it was a huge process of growing for me as well, for me finding me, for me actually bringing me back, because me got buried many, many years ago. I did put a post up on Facebook a while back of the before and after, and people just absolutely didn't recognize me at all. But it was, these cliff jumps became, it was almost, I was looking for them. In the end, I was actually looking for the next cliff jump, because I had evolved, and I was able to, I just gained that much confidence through, you know, I did all sorts of roles in finance. Everything you could think of, I had done it, you know, from project accountant, from business controller, from a financial controller, you name it, I did it. But I was going through contract work quite frequently. I was doing sort of like maybe 2 years, then a year, then 6 months, then 9 months. And so I was going into different areas. And what I found was I wasn't actually going into the roles for the job. I was going there for people, because every single role I went into, somebody would come forward who needed advice, guidance, assistance. And the one area that I'd always been consistent with was the energetic side of things. You know, for me, when I realised what it was, and this, by the time I'd finished in finance, this was the message that I got, was that I was doing the wrong job, I was in the wrong place, and this wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. This definitely wasn't what I love to do, and I ended up having to have quite a serious operation in the end, and that kind of floored me, and I had to stop. And at that point, I realised that I actually hated what I was doing. What I loved doing was being there for people and being able to help people make the changes in their lives.
Now, is that when you became a coach? You became a certified coach, right?
I hadn't heard of personal development back in 2010. Didn't know anything about it. Never been to a seminar, never been to a workshop, anything like this. And you know, the way that I see how everything works. You know, see the transmutation of energy now, and I realised that back then, because I was so. I hated being where I was so much. I actually caused a company to go into liquidation, I think. Mm-hmm. Really sorry. But, you know, I was so inside. I just don't want to be doing this anymore. And I happened to see on a website this weekend of free coaching, to go along and try out some free coaching. And I thought, all right, I'll go along to that. And of course, as soon as I got out there and I was doing these practical exercises with people, that was it. I was in my element. You know, the energetic part of me was coming out, and I ended up doing 2 diplomas in 5 months. And I got them, I passed them with commendations or something, I think they were. But saying that, I haven't really used them, because I found the way coaching is slightly different over here to over in America. I think over there it's more like mentoring. Mm-hmm. Over here it's not. It's to me, it disempowers the recipient, because you're not actually guiding them. You're just asking them question after question after question, and it doesn't really help someone who's totally lost. And I found that actually where my strength was in the energetic area of being able to understand, being able to help people understand what is going on within their bodies, because the whole of your body is an energetic field, because everything is energy, down to your cells, molecules, atoms. And when you understand how that works from the inside out, then you really start to take control and you really start to make changes, because everything happens from the inside out. So I had a process of time, you know, sort of, how do I express this? How do I knew I couldn't give it in the way things were being shown and given, the way that I'd been taught. And I had to come to the conclusion that I literally had to break the mold. I had to start to bring something completely fresh to people. And my biggest concern was, because of all the conditioning that has been out there for so long, and conditioning in what I call smoke and mirrors, so that, I mean, you know, you go back to the 16th century even, and you have the witch hunts, and you know, most of that was to stop freedom of speech, to stop natural homeopathic remedies and things that people knew then that worked, that were powerful, because it meant that the individual would be empowered. And to take that away and get people into an organized religion meant that they were then in control and in supplication. And that goes right through to modern day. You know, you get labels of anything to do with spirituality, to do with energy work, even some forms of science, you know, homeopathic science, and it's termed as woo-woo, and it's termed as, you know, oh, it's new age, you know, and it's not. It's just a fact that we are energetic beings, and we have the ability to use this and tap into this, because that's what we are. So my whole premise was to bring the scientific verification of all energetic practices, of everything that people would term as magical or as spiritual, to be able to show the actual scientific verification, not just in the external world, but internally, to show people the internal processes that happen that create the magic.
It's true. And it's funny, because if you look at it, what we do now in our current society would have been beyond magic 200 years ago, maybe even 100 years ago. They would never imagine looking at a TV set, looking at the internet, talking with people that you don't know. I mean, they would just go, how do you do? That's magic. That's evil. We must kill it. You know, they wouldn't understand it.
And it's what it is that science is just catching up. Mm-hmm. The thing, I mean, that, you know, people like to see scientific verification, but they're only verifying what's already there. You know, this is the elements of energetic work and, you know, magical things have been there since the dawn of time, since you know, since the whole creation of the earth is just kind of like a magical process. They have,
and look at things like one of the things I've always enjoyed is acupuncture. The Chinese discovered it probably over 5,000 years ago, and only about maybe 5 years ago, IBM or I think IBM did some sort of research study where they were able to actually see the energetic fields in the body at the subatomic level, and it got no press, nothing got talked about, even though they had published some works. It was really fascinating work, and it gets totally ignored, because they basically said the same thing that an acupuncturist said 5,000 years ago without any equipment. They knew, they could feel it.
So many of these people, though, have kind of disappeared. You know, you had Royal Raymond Rife back in the 1920s, and he created the first frequency monitoring machine. That machine, he did trials on 1,000 cancer patients, and he cured them, every single one of them, over a period of time by adjusting the frequency to bringing their body frequency up. That was taken by Bruce Tanio of Tanio Technologies. He then applied it to plants and soil, and he discovered that everything has a frequency. So all the essential oils came from there. So you have this whole chart of like rose oil is 300 hertz, and food, all natural food has got a hertz rating. Funny enough, processed food is dead. It's 0 hertz. So kind of tells you something.
I'm gonna think twice before I have a hamburger today, right?
Well, it's kind of seamless, because when I work with people now, I get them to understand the frequency of their bodies, and I get them to understand where the frequency ranges are. And once you start to understand that, then that kind of opens up to everything, because nothing is not living. They say you have animate and inanimate objects. Well, the inanimate objects are still living.
And they have a frequency. Their density is different. It's just a denser frequency.
Yeah, it's you have the cells, the atoms, molecules are all energy, and they are moving in everything, even a car. Sometimes my son is sort of like because I'll talk to my car. I knew, actually, I'll tell you this, my car did not like being in a garage. I put it into a garage thinking that I was being good and, making sure that I was looking after it. And I found that after a few weeks, it stopped. It wouldn't work. And it's never done that before in the whole time I've had it. And I got it out, and I just knew it was because it was in the garage and it was away from everything else. And so I got it out of the garage and I parked it on the road, and I've never had a problem with it.
Interesting. Well, most guys I know talk to their cars, and how. and most guys think their cars are female. So that's always an interesting. I've just known a lot of guys who are really into cars, and it's she. She does a great job for me. She does this. I put new parts in. And the car has a presence for them. It's real interesting. And I've seen guys, especially guys, very attached to their cars. It is more than a car. And it kind of almost goes back to I joke that it's kind of like the medieval times where they had their horses. A knight had his horse. That horse was part of that knight's background. It's the same idea. We just changed it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I mean, I've for want of words, or labels, I've never been a sort of like a girly girl. I've loved cars. I've taken cars to pieces before. Loved bikes, anything like that. And it's not really been into the shoes and all that sort of stuff. Hence, I suppose why I like my rock music.
Now it's interesting because when you talk about frequencies, they're doing more and more research and studies on electromagnetic cures for things. They're finding that through electromagnetic frequencies, if you will, body organs can start resonating correctly again.
Absolutely.
And really, that's stuff that's been around for, like you said, thousands of years. They understood that somehow, whether it was intuitively or not, and I would say it's probably intuitive, but they knew that it could work. I've met, for example, some acupuncture doctors who are very intuitive. They could look at you, they could touch you, and they know what organ was out of balance, what system was out of balance. And when they did that, they could actually apply the needles to let the energy flow correctly. A lot of people don't know what acupuncture is. They think it's needles and it just hurts, and it doesn't really hurt. Though sometimes it can sting a little bit because they open up energy pathways. But all of that really comes from energy flowing in the body. And when we have blockages, and the blockages can start in the stomach, it can start in your brain, then when you can release those blockages, all of a sudden, and let's not even talk about emotional blockages, we can have many shows on that one. The emotional blockage can again cause a lot of physical issues. And
absolutely. I mean, it's so plain to see now. I mean, there is no such thing as illness. This is again is smoke and mirrors. every thing that they deem as illness is a physical manifestation of resistance within the body. So this is purely the body giving a physical symptom to where somebody is holding resistance.
Yes.
You know, this can, and a lot of my work that I do is I help people to release the negative emotional memories, which, you know, as you say, they do cause the blockages, because I work with the chakras. I work with them using their chakras as opposed to, and tapping points as opposed to the acupuncture. So they're actually doing this themselves. And at the same time, they're becoming very vulnerable because they're having to accept and acknowledge what they're holding on to as negative emotions, and you know, whether it's a fear or whether it's a low self-worth, or you know, right down to if they don't love themselves. This inside the body, it actually causes blockages for the nervous system, which is our electrical system.
Right.
That creates inefficiency in the nervous system being able to function properly. That then creates an inefficiency in the functions of the body, which then lowers the body frequency.
Right. And give it time, and then you add time to that equation. The more you let that happen, the more disease happens.
Absolutely. I mean, a healthy body is 76 to 83 hertz. Colds, flus, and illness are 57 to 60 hertz, and cancer is 42 hertz. So the lower the body frequency, the more the immune system becomes compromised.
So in essence, the goal is not to let the body get too low on frequencies.
Yes, this is a lot of what I help and guide people with. Is I help to understand where their body frequency is at the time that I meet them, why it's there, and to be able to do the process is to bring it up, to actually get it into a lighter density, because you got frequency. I tend to term it as a lower density or a higher density, because there is no separation. Everything is connected. We are the facet of just one consciousness. And that goes for frequency as well. There are no different frequencies. It's just a lighter or a denser part of energy. You know, because energy is the byproduct of consciousness. So it's being able to bring people out of that, seeing everything as separate, and seeing themselves as separate, and coming in, and that takes a lot of internal work to be able to come to the point where you actually feel this interconnectedness, and you can feel, and as you were saying, like the acupuncturist, I mean, when I work with people, I can feel their frequency. I know where they are. I know what blockages they have. I know what's gone on in their childhood history without them telling me. I know what's gone on generationally because I it up through the frequency.
You intuitively feel it. You know, it's funny. A lot of doctors feel nothing when you go see them, and so as a result, they take a guess. They ask one or two questions, and it's a very, how should I put it, cold relationship many times between a doctor and a patient. I've been very lucky. I had a doctor for a long time. He retired recently, which was really a shame. He called himself a country doctor. He was a full MD. He was actually an obstetrician for many years, got bored delivering babies and said, I'm going to become a general practitioner. And he would talk to you, and he would get a feel for what and he got to know you. And many times he would spend half hour, 45 minutes with you. And then he would say, let's do this. And he wouldn't give you medicines easily. You have to really need the medicine. I had a pneumonia one time, and he said, we're not going to give you medicine. He goes, the modern medicines will probably make you sicker. He gave me potassium iodide, liquid potassium iodide. He said, it'll bring it right up. And it did. He said, you don't need, he goes, I'm not going to give you antibiotics because it's not going to kill anything in you. You don't have, it's more of a viral kind of thing. And it did. Within about a week, most of the pneumonia was gone. He said, if I had sent you to the hospital, it would have probably been maybe as much, would have cost you 10 times more, and you wouldn't have felt as well.
Well, the standard medical that's out there, the same as the standard schooling, unfortunately, has been corrupted for a very long time, which will be, probably another show we can do. But it is designed, as is the food we're eating, is designed to make people ill because it's feeding the pharmaceutical companies. The medical profession, unfortunately, they are taught, as they are in the schools, in a certain regime. They cannot deviate from this learning. They're only given this much to be able to learn from,
right?
And they're allowed to go out there.
And there are good things that modern medicine has done, but at the basic level, it doesn't solve the problem. It treats a symptom. And
exactly.
That just covers the symptom. It doesn't get rid of the symptom. It covers it.
Yeah, a lot of I'm really delighted to see that a lot of medical doctors who are intuitive. I mean, everybody's intuitive. They just forget. They forget it's in there. But I'm seeing a lot of them are turning to homeopathic remedies now. They are turning back to the intuitive side and to going into natural remedies. What you were saying about the ammonia, I create an essential oil mix for people, which gets rid of cold. It gets rid of everything. Actually, it's quite amazing. I think that was one of the things with my children when they were younger, and I think they kind of thought I was more magical than I was, because I used to make this thing, put it on their throat, whatever, their cold was gone. It's like.
I remember as a kid getting castor oil, and it didn't taste good, but it worked, and you felt better after that. You didn't need a lot of medicine or anything else, and a lot of them, for example. This is a common problem today. A lot of people have acid reflux, or they need antacids. And it's interesting. They don't. More often than not, we don't produce enough acid in the stomach. But we have the symptom where they think there's not enough. It's the exact opposite. The second one is that those medications taken long term completely disrupt the natural functioning of the body. So as a result, you're actually getting sicker from long-term use of many of these meds versus other meds. And it's interesting. And most of it with supplements, with vitamins, with oils, you can probably cure 90-something% of everything, if not more, naturally or very naturally. It might take a little longer, but in the long run, it'll be a lot healthier.
I don't take anything. And I haven't had a cold or flu in over 15 years now, and I cured myself of chronic asthma. And in the meditation I created, where I use the harmonics at the chakras, and I do the release, the emotional release, I lost 2 clothes sizes in 3 weeks. And I was absolutely certain that I got rid of everything, that I'd done all the work inside, and I'd come into balance and, let everything go. And, oh my goodness, had I not, and it just literally fell off me. I would get up and my clothes were hanging off me. It was just unbelievable. But it does, and it can work so quickly. I mean, I've had fibromyalgia patients who have come off painkillers. They've been in bed for 1.5 years. And in 2 days, they're off their painkillers. In 4 days, they're out. And I had one lady going to Disneyland in 4 days. Because the body does, as soon as that blockage is gone, as soon as all of that is released, these cells restore themselves to natural health. Bruce Lipton, the cellular biologist, he's done so much study in this, and so many case studies and everything, and cellular work. And, he's proved now that our cells are taking their signal from our beliefs. It's nothing to do with the environment. So if we believe we're ill,
we're going to be sick.
Yeah,
that's true. I had a teacher, an anatomy teacher once in college, and he said, "What is illness?" And everybody raises their hand. Everybody had the wrong answer. He goes, "Look at the word disease." He says, "Let's break it down. Dis-ease, not at ease." He said most illness is because we're not relaxed. The body is not relaxed. It's not in tune. He called it in tune, but it's really in harmony, in the correct frequency, if you will. and he goes, dis-ease. You're not at ease. That is the real meaning of that word. Same with religion. Religion is, if you look at the Latin root, it's religare, to reunite. Not to separate, but to reunite. It's rather interesting. But disease, if we look at disease, it's nothing more than, more often than not, we're very stressed. We're very tense. And the minute you start getting tense, everything goes bad.
Yeah. I mean, and this is the societies that we're in, the societies that have been created and deliberately created with untold social conditioning, which has gone through generational conditioning. And they are there specifically to make people feel unstable and to put people in fear, because in fear they can be controlled.
Yeah, just watch the news.
Yeah, it's and so much of it is orchestrated and it's deliberate.
It is. It's completely scripted, and more often than not, the news makes people very afraid, uneasy. They get nervous. They get a little paranoid, and that creates a very easily controlled person. It also creates somebody who's not very happy.
Exactly, and not only that, but you can take this, because everything is interconnected. You can take this to what they deem as natural disasters. There are no such thing as natural disasters. This is a physical manifestation of people's low frequency. The hurricane was just such an example of this in New York. And you see, coming up to the elections, you heard all the, I don't watch TV, but Facebook's great because you tend to see everything there. But there was all this stuff being spewed out, and it was all, none of it, there was no truth in any of it. It was there to rile people up. It was there to get them worried, to get them in fear. And it did a really good job. And what do you get? You get a huge, great hurricane coming in over New York. And Washington. So many of the natural disasters, if you look at them and what's going on in the area at the time, this is a mass hysteria that has manifested itself. Because nature is abundant. Nature doesn't need to do this, balancing act, but it will react to massive changes in frequency. And you imagine populations and millions and millions and billions of people, and their frequency has gone so low, it has to manifest more than through themselves. It has to manifest outside.
Yeah, and if you look at sociology, for example, they've done studies where the more you pile people on top of each other over and over and over again, like very big cities, they're the most unhealthy places on earth. If you look at them, a lot of people are unhappy, they're stressed. Too much. There's just too much going on in most big cities, and it shows. If you look back on the pre-industrial age, we didn't have these huge, at least not that many huge cities. That people tended to be a little more, I guess, suburban or smaller villages or whatever. And I'd say we were probably healthier then in some respects.
We had time to communicate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We had time to get to know each other.
Yeah. So the internet right now is actually replacing that. We're all getting to communicate on the internet because everybody has no time to actually see each other sometimes. It's interesting. Now, you and I met on the internet, and it was funny. I tell people I had this, it happened in December, and we had Terry Brock on one of our shows, and I really liked Terry, so I went to his Facebook page, and I saw some of the people who were following him. You were one of them, I believe. And so I contacted you. I thought you had an interesting website name and you seemed interesting, so contacted you. And then I think within a week we talked and hit it off. And I said, hey, you want to do a show? So it was, and just think of, to me, that was fun. And it was almost very synchronous, if you will. I really believe in synchronicity, that things always happen when they should, when they have to happen. If we pay attention, a lot of good things would happen. We just miss a lot of it because we're not paying attention. But it just really does work that way in so many things, whether it's business, whether it's your relationships, pleasure, life. And it makes for a fun living when you start paying attention to that kind of thing.
And we are moving into a new It's called the New Age of Enlightenment, because we're moving out of this controlled era that we've been in for so long. Because the time, it wasn't the end of the world in the Mayan calendar. It was just the awakening of consciousness. That was the change that was going to happen. And this happens through contribution and service. It also happens through communication and collaboration. And what better way to do that than on the internet? I mean, when I left finance, I had nothing. I left I was on quite a very decent salary, and I came away with nothing. And I thought, how on earth am I going to? Because I knew that just from a series of things that happened, I knew what I could bring to people, and I knew it was helping people. I knew, when I worked with people, it was helping people, but I knew that it needed to be brought to people in a way that they could action, that it wasn't just talk, that it was something that they could actually do. And I was, how do I do this? Have I got to do one-to-one, got to go out, put posters up in local shops and all this sort of thing. And I kind of had a vision of being in the big O2 in London and thousands of people there. And it was kind of, and it wasn't there to say, oh, look, I'm going to be famous. It was more, I wasn't thinking on the right scale. I wasn't thinking big enough to get this message, whatever this is that is helping people, had to go on a global scale. And I'm sitting there, in my little house going, okay, well, how do I do this? And it was one of my daughters who said, go on Facebook. And I was like, no. I don't want to do Facebook, She said, you don't have to do it personal. She said, you can just do it, So I did. I started on Facebook. And in 5 months, I had 5,000 people following me. Now, I had every religion under the sun following me. I had people from nearly every country in the world following me. And that, to me, I saw the power. I saw the power of social media. It didn't take me long to realize that this was my communication. And, long before I was going to be able to get out physically to all of these countries, I could actually talk. I could talk to people, not write a message. I could talk. I could interact with them. And of course, with Skype as well, you can actually have conversations.
And it brings us very close together. If you think about it, the world gets so much closer with this, which is one of the reasons why so many countries want to limit the internet. And they have not been successful, but they want to stop a lot of internet accessibility. And they use excuses to do that. Like we had SOPA and everything else over here where they're saying, well, we're protecting music. No, they're not. They're just stopping the internet from being a free place. And a lot of people want to charge for the internet. And most people are totally against it. And it's not a place to really, you can monetize your products, but you shouldn't monetize the conversations, or try to limit it, because think of the world in another 100 years as we get closer and closer. Right now, if you listen to the news, we're the craziest world on earth. But as you talk to people are pretty nice. I had a friend who just went to Malaysia, and he said in Kuala Lumpur, there's a lot of Muslims, there's Buddhists, there's Christians. Everybody gets along.
Yeah.
If you listen to the news, it's a horrible place. There's so many problems. He said it was really nice. The people were friendly. They wanted to talk about life. There wasn't a sense of violence there.
No, it's all conditioning. It's all smoke and mirrors that's put out there to make people perceive and believe something that isn't really there, because it keeps them in fear.
That's true. Well, Edel, guess what? We are at the end of our first introductory show, and we're going to have a lot more of these, and we're going to talk with people. Next week we'll have an active chat room. We'll be able to take questions and just have a lot more fun. We're going to have somebody monitoring the chat, and we'll just have a good time. Edel has a lot to offer, and I think it's going to be a great show, and I think everybody will get something out of it. Edel, you have a great week. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm absolutely love being here, and there's so much that I we'll be able to share over the weeks. You know, we can take it a week at a time and do a little area and really cover it well.
Sure.
You know, whatever, and especially people's questions. That's the one thing I love, question and answer. So, you know, whatever anybody has a question, you know, wherever they are, if they're stuck in their lives, if they're, you know, they don't know how to get out of fear, you know, just let's answer it. Let's answer it in the shows.
Sure, that sounds great. And also, if you'd like to meet or learn more about Edel, go to www.pathofthepeacefulwarrior. Let me bring it up right here. www.pathofthepeacefulwarrior.com. Good website, good information over there. I think you'll enjoy it. Well, Edel, we'll see you next week.
Okay.
Same time, same place. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.